Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Postgame Show podcast presented by PointsBet. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. Luke Stuckmeyer, and look at this, Kyle Williams.
He's back.
Back in the building.
Time.
Cody Dumbendo. Ryan Herrera is going to be here later on telling us about what was said from Jason Hayward earlier today at Wrigley Field. Folks, we are in the 70s. We're not talking about the weather. We're not talking about the decade. We are talking about Cubs wins in 2022.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
They will not catch the Chicago White Sox, but it's going to be way closer than they want it to be because still within 7 to go. And the Cubs sweep a season series against the Phillies. The first time either franchise has swept a season series against one another.
In 139 seasons.
That's a long time. And then Megan Montemurro, the Tribune just put out, it's just the 5th time in franchise history the Cubs have swept a season series of at least 5 games. The others, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Atlanta, and the Mets in 2015.
Oh, yeah, I do remember them sweeping the Mets.
Yeah, and then of course, that didn't turn out well in the postseason. But, wow.
Right.
So they've won 8 of 9 games, the Cubs. The red-hot Chicago Cubs.
12-4.
Parties all down at
See what it took to get Kyle back in the building?
I had to wait till the winning comes back around, you know?
Basically, it took a miracle to get Kyle to return to come on a show. Well, welcome back.
Actually, he just happened to walk in. He walked in. We were all kind of surprised. And then he was hanging out with me and Luke. And then we were like, you can do the show with us if you want, man.
3 chairs.
Like, yeah, there's an
chairs,
extra
let's
chair.
do
Producers didn't want to move the chair. So we let them do less work. You know.
I think this is my first Cubs show since the Rocky series when they were in Colorado.
Wow, that's April.
Yeah.
It's April.
That feels like 10 years ago.
That was the one series where Jonathan VR was good.
Wow, that was 10 years ago.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
They are 12-4 since September 12th. And who had this sort of run with Javier Assad locking down 5+ solid shutout innings?
Where were you when the ass man shoved the Philadelphia Phillies out of the second wild card spot?
Wow. Tied with the Brewers at this point now. That's the negative of all this, is that they've helped the Brewers.
Yeah, that's the only bad thing about this entire situation. But if Milwaukee loses tonight against St. Louis, I think they'd just be tied.
Yeah, and Philadelphia owns the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So realistically, they're not tied.
Right.
Okay.
So one can
there's
hope that the Phillies figure their shit out.
But 70 wins.
6 games to go.
The season total over is still alive for me. Needs 76. They got to win out. They got to sweep the Reds.
Wow.
Twice.
So now the Reds are going to sweep them.
Don't say that, Kyle.
I mean,
don't bring that negative energy in here.
6 more in a row? That seems like a big ask.
It is a big ask, but it's alive. It's alive.
I mean, if Happ keeps playing like that, it's 6 more?
I mean, Ian Happ
That catch in the 9th
made
inning.
2 great catches in the outfield today.
Absolutely.
I don't really know who. I'll be honest with you. I can't think of who he's up against. Like that, most of the time a left fielder is out there because they can't play in the field. He's a rarity. Like he's a guy that could actually play center field, and he's in left. You have to take your hat off to the guy. You really do. Like he knew there was going to be trade rumors around him all season. He didn't get traded, and we were saying, you would have been saying, I know I would have been saying at the beginning of the season, man, I could have seen that they just would have walked away from Ian Happ after the first half of last season. But he had a second half that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's turned it into an all-star season and maybe a gold glove season.
Yeah.
And he might not be exactly the type of guy that they're looking for in left field, but I don't really know why. Because he's not that old.
I think
there'd be crazier things than keeping Ian Happ as your left fielder.
I think Ian Happ, if you get Ian Happ, this production from Ian Happ, and you add in a few more bats via free agency, then you get Brandon Davis and Matt Mervis on this roster next year. Ian Happ becomes even more valuable. Because remember, he's doing this with with this roster.
Right.
You know
and
what I
if
mean?
someday he becomes your Jason Hayward leader on the bench, extra outfielder, that's okay. He's not going to get Hayward's contract,
Right.
which we'll talk about later because he spoke at Wrigley Field. But the point is they're losing. Maybe the wrong word is losing. Jason Hayward won't be there next year, and he is unquestionably one of the vocal veteran leaders on what will be a very young team again next season. Would have been a very young team. So now Happ is that guy.
Right. We got a few comments here. You know, Shane says perfect time for Jed to deal him this offseason. Joel says they're expecting Davis and PCA next year to make room for him somehow. And Sean asked Cody, would you pick Rookie of the Year in a 90s movie draft? Oh, buddy. Perhaps, but probably not. No.
I mean, let's just...
If we did sports movies, you know,
Sarah,
I love
can
Rookie
you find
of the
the
Year.
movies draft we did on the CHGO podcast, the final results of that?
Yeah,
we did it today. I've seen some slander out there suggesting that I didn't win, which I fully expect the two gentlemen sitting next to me to be voting on Twitter on my behalf moving forward as a unity-formed CHGO Cubs team.
While she's doing that, let me finish my thought here.
Oh, sorry.
Based off those comments that Shane and Joel left.
Yeah.
They do bring up a good point. Canario, 37 bombs in Iowa this year.
Yeah.
Brennan Davis, I already mentioned he's going to be here, and PCA will be here at some point. I think PCA is more of a second-half addition, kind of like what Schwarber was in 2015 next year, and that's if the Cubs are in it, and I think the Cubs are planning on being good next year, so I get it. But you still don't know what you're going to get out of those guys, and you know what you're going to get out of Ian Happ going in next year, I think. I don't think those guys should be stopping you from moving on from Ian Happ or not.
Here's what I think is the likely scenario. He's just had his best major league season. If they do believe in Morel and Canario and Davis and PCA, this is his highest trade value.
It is.
It is.
And if you're trying to get pitching or some other position, this might be the time they do it because you're trading a guy that's in his final year. It's possible, but
He'd be the next generation of Starlin Castro type.
I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't mind seeing him.
point.
I wouldn't mind seeing him play a second base again for the last 6 games, just to see if he can do it. Because if you go get Correa or somebody else, and Nico's at short, at least you would know he at the very least you have a utility guy in him.
Yeah, I guess.
But again, I've also said I don't want too many utility guys.
I don't know.
I'll just say this: like I get you have the PCAs coming up, the Canarios, but like kind of like you mentioned, we don't know what we're getting from them yet, and like these aren't Chris Bryant Schwarber level prospects coming up. Like these aren't right from next season they're gonna be here. I just think
like PCA might be the closest to that as we speak right now, just based off like the jump he's taken this year. Brennan Davis, he looked like that last year, and then the injury happened, and like now he's gonna go to the fall league, and I'm praying, dude. I'm praying that guy tears up the fall league like Nelson Velasquez did last year, and he comes in the spring and just lights it up so hard that the Cubs have no choice other than to let him start the year on the major league roster. I'm praying for it. I would love to see him be my starting center fielder on the 2023 Chicago Cubs. But that said, again though, like I think. Like Chris Bryant, I understand you throw him in there his rookie year. You throw him out there, makes absolute sense. He was the second overall pick in the draft. He was the best player in the minor leagues the year before. He was a college player of the year. Like, none of those guys have those kinds of accolades. So, like, the thought process of just, you can just throw Davis out there and and let him figure it out. And you can do the same thing with, Canario and PCA. I'm not getting the same vibe. I think you have to have a backup plan. And I think Ian Happ, I'm not saying Ian Happ's a backup plan, but if you have a guy like that who has improved defensively.
Under cheap control, and again, is proven that he can now be a valuable hitter for a full season, like, I just think you have Ian Happ and those guys, that only makes your team better. The only thing that would change my mind on trading Ian Happ is if you're getting like a Shane Bieber, or if you're getting an Ohtani, or if you're getting like a big piece. I don't want to just trade Ian Happ.
Then you drive him to the airport yourself.
Right. Like, I don't want him to be – I don't want the Cubs to trade him for the sake that they don't have room for him anymore, so they're going to move him like they moved Starlin Castro for Adam Warren, and then they went and signed Ben Zobrist an hour later. You know
but it is pretty clear that the trade value at the deadline wasn't what the Cubs hoped it was going to be for Ian Happ. Now, Lucas is saying exactly what Cody is saying in the chat. Says, Happ is a known quantity. As much as I would love to see Canario, Davis, PCA, et cetera, in the outfield, Happ is a probable Gold Glove all-star player. That is what he's going to be this season.
But his second comment, I don't think Happ would take an AAV contract that in that range unless he just...
With an opt-out after 3, he's saying 10 to 15 million average over 5 years with an opt-out after 3.
Well, I'm going to look up his contract right now because I don't know. I don't even know how much he's making this year.
Yeah.
So, like...
Well... I'm just trying to think of the type of player, the type of deal he's going to want, a similar type player.
Because his WAR,
like this really is clearly his best season.
Oh, yeah,
like he's
easily.
had minor league stints. That's where his value is going to be knocked by any agent or a team. They're going to say, well,
okay,
this is one season of proof.
So in 2021, Happ made $4.1 million, and then this year he's making $6.8 million. Obviously, next year he's probably going to make – I feel like he's played well enough that the Cubs might bump it to like 9 or 10, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you were to extend him, I think he would want to make somewhere between at least 13 to 15 million a year.
Yeah.
At least. And if you do that for like a 4-year deal at the age that he's at, like that's fine. That's fine with me.
Just don't know what he wants.
Yeah, that's the thing is like
You know?
I don't know what he wants, and I don't know like – these guys can say they want to be in Chicago all they want and this and that, and like that's great. I'd rather hear that than them
complaining,
complaining, and then
out.
also giving the vibe of like that they care more about the money. Like I'd rather them do that than do the opposite, right? But at the end of the day, it is a business, and this is Ian Happ's biggest chance to make the most money he can possibly make. And like
he's a team rep, by the way. He's not just
and from like that perspective, I don't blame him. No one should blame him for that. So it'll be interesting. It should like it should be. Again, I think the Cubs should keep him, but if they are going to trade him, if he's part of a major trade that brings in a major piece that can really help the team next year, sure, that makes a lot of sense. But trading him for prospects doesn't make sense to me at this point.
Like Fangraphs currently has him playing at using WAR to calculate their value system. He's played like a $26.7 million player this year, according to their WAR and everything.
Which his agent will use.
Which they will use. And that's why I don't agree. He has 1 year left of team control. Worst comes to worst, you try and find him a home at the deadline. But I think if you want to be good next year, you have to have Happ. If one of those minor league guys just happen to outplay Ian Happ, then that's a different story. But I think you have to have Happ on the team at the start of the year for his leadership, his bat,
and don't forget Morel's another one of your outfielders, and I mean he's young too. Like there's no reason to think that he won't have a.
And again, like you don't know about PCA and his timetable. Like I think a lot of the prospect guys really believe if PCA comes up next year, it would be more like in September, like a September call-up type situation. He would have to absolutely destroy the minor leagues again next year for the Cubs to call him up, and the Cubs would have to be in contention, and maybe an injury or something like that would lead to it. But I don't think it's on their radar right away to be like, we're going to call up PCA. Now, Brennan Davis, like I just said, I think if he plays well in the fall league and has a hot spring, there's like, who else are they going to play in center outside of Morel? But you want to move Morel all around though. Like, why not have Brennan Davis on the roster, right? Yeah. And Canario just hit 37 bombs in the minors this year. This guy's got to be on this team next year sometime, at some point, if not at the beginning of the year. Or you use him for trade bait. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But, yeah, the outfield is very crowded right now in terms of the future.
With possibilities. Crowded with possibilities.
For sure, yeah. It's a good problem to have, right?
Sea's like the only guaranteed outfielder you really have out there.
Absolutely.
I shouldn't even say that. Morel is 2 and Happ is 2. It's just the thing is that everybody's available if the right player is on the trade market for some of those. So that's why they've tried to accumulate, as I say, good baseball players. Good things happen. Tough decisions are made. And believe it or not, the Cubs are going to start having some of those sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Just for the 40-man roster, let alone trying to figure out who's going to play next season, which is hard to believe kind of going into where they were this season. Now, Keegan Thompson came into this game too, and all right. Now, again, another guy that I didn't want to see Nico back. I don't want to see Steele back. I didn't want to see Keegan back. They've all shown me enough that I don't need to see anything. But he came in and now has once again shown you that he can be an absolute multi-inning weapon.
Yeah.
Even when he walks two guys.
Pitching weapon, yeah. Yeah, walked two guys, in that first inning? Still got the strikeout to get out of it.
Yes.
He really didn't I mean, maybe that ninth inning, a little bit more hard contact. Yeah. Happ helped him out with the catch, and then the second out was a hard hit ball to third. Whatever.
But his strike.
That second inning, though, was dirty. Like, the strikeout he had on Bryce Harper, it was the classic Leonardo DiCaprio gif from Wolf of Wall Street, just like, by it, like, just, it was like chef's kiss stuff. Like, Keegan Thompson, here we go again, Luke, going back and forth. Should this guy be a starter? Should this guy be a bullpen guy? I think he could just do it all. I think he is just as versatile as any pitcher the Cubs have. If you need him to make a spot start for you, great. You want him to go and shove 3 innings down a team's throat that's battling for a playoff spot? Fine, cool. You know what I mean? Like, the guy just does whatever you ask, and like, his growth this year has been so fun to watch, and I know we went through a time period where we didn't talk about him because he was hurt, but like, we talk about Nico, we talk about Justin Steele. He's right there. He's right there. I feel just as good about him going in next year as I do Steele and Nico Horner.
Well, I mean, and to some degree, we've said many times, don't give up on Alzolay. I know you can't count on him being a starter right now, but don't eliminate that possibility. Like, I'm not ready to do that either. He's the same age. And he got there first. Now, Thompson, what we saw again today, while it again highlights what kind of a weapon he could be after a nice start by somebody, just a 5-inning start, which is becoming more and more common in Major League Baseball. Then you bring him in for 3, and then your closer or whatever. It also highlights what I was saying the other day, where if the pitching pool is better the following year and you want to overspend on the position players this year, while we all agree they need a number 1 starter. Like, to be a World Series team, they need somebody above Stroman and then mix in Steele and those guys, so you have some guys that are shooting to be that one at some point. Thompson and Alzolay give you that flexibility of what you want to do this offseason. You may say that number 1 starter is a priority, but what if you can land 2 big fish in the everyday free agent pool? I'm okay with it if that's the way they go. I'm not saying I don't think a number 1 starter it should be a priority. I do, but not if you have to super overpay for someone that's not necessarily your choice.
I guess if you're not going to go get like a number 1 top tier starter, they still need to go sign a starter.
Right,
absolutely. Like,
even just Smiley being back.
Yeah, Smiley would be huge.
But if you don't believe that Rodon is your guy, or if Rodon says, you know what, I want to be in San Francisco, or I want to go to wherever, I want to pitch in warm weather, don't freak out and pay option C insane money that you're going to regret later.
Yeah.
Like, don't just spend money because we're mad and Michael Collada's mad and everybody wants the money. Spend it on the right guys. And if those 2 guys happen to be position players, it might not be the path you set out on, but it might be the smartest path. I don't know.
Yeah. I like Lucas's comment, the guy out in Japan. We haven't talked about him a lot, but he's a possibility. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him. I couldn't tell you what I really think about him, but
I didn't know anything about
Senga is a option, and I think he might be attracted to the Cubs with Suzuki already here. Like, they probably have a relationship. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? You know?
Joel says, hear me out. Sign Rodon and trade for Bieber next year. Now, if you have Rodon and Bieber and Stroman and Steele and Wesneski
and Wesneski, yeah. Hendricks and Wesneski on top of that.
And Hendricks.
Looks like a division winner to me.
That's a division winning.
I mean,
rotation.
you become a real serious contender.
I really will start dreaming about a 95 win season
for sure.
next year. You won't even I won't even stop you from talking me into it. I will have already talked myself into 95 wins next year.
I mean that you
but
would be
again.
you would be,
we'll see.
You would be stockpiled with pitching options.
Absolutely.
And in that case, almost certainly Thompson and Alzolay would be in the bullpen.
Oh yeah.
But you start to add Cody Hoyer when he comes
and
back.
Wesneski
and
would probably
Hughes.
be in the thing too.
Could be.
Yeah. But your bullpen would be freaking stacked with those two and Wesneski.
You'd have some strikeout possibilities to bring in.
Estrada's going to be in there. Brandon Hughes. Oh my. Thank you, Joel, for getting me way too excited about a hypothetical scenario.
Well, I was going to say, I love Nick G's comment. He's like, that's some 2016 rotation vibes.
Right, yeah. No, my
Don't
gosh.
say that. Don't say that.
But then your lineup, again, would be weak.
Well,
because you assume you're losing Wilson. So Gomes is your catcher. You have nobody to really play first.
Well,
if you sign those two guys, you're not getting Correa or Turner or
if they were to just do what Joel said and then didn't spend more money on a major position player, then yeah, I'm gonna want PCA or not PCA. I'm definitely gonna want Brennan Davis, and I'm definitely gonna want Canario on this roster opening day.
Because I just don't. The bats at that point.
I don't think I do hear you out, Joel, but the reason that doesn't make as much sense is their depth has been built on young pitching.
Mm.
So if there's a place that they have to add, it appears it's going to be on the hitting side, and your pitching you should be able to save on.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Like it makes sense to sign Rodon, and if you're going to make a trade for Ohtani. You know what I mean?
Unless you're trading two of those young pitchers to get Bieber.
Right. Like
which is possible
for sure. Yeah. And
I wouldn't hate.
Yeah, no, 2 more years of control of Bieber, and he's like 28 years old. Makes perfect sense. He's already won a Cy Young.
I wouldn't hate it,
even though it was in the Mickey Mouse year or whatever. You know, I would love Shane Bieber on the north side of Chicago, right? All hypothetical scenarios. I don't know, but I get where you're coming from, Luke, in terms of like where the Cubs should spend money. And yes, I would say spending money on a position player. I lean more towards that, considering what we've seen from the pitching to this point. But they definitely would need to sign a arm. Like I don't have the list in front of me, but like an arm of someone. Mm-hmm. You bring Drew Smiley back. I still think you need to sign another arm, even if you do that. Like there just isn't enough experience in this rotation for me to believe that it could lead you 162 games. Maybe it would be good for the first half of the year, but I feel like there'd be some bumps in the road, and having to rely on young guys to come up and just carry you when you're trying to win. I mean, it doesn't always work. 2015 was special. It was a special year, man, but it doesn't always work.
If you had to go that way, it could be another Smiley type player. It could be a reclamation guy, a guy in a 1-year deal just to like try and bridge the gap to a big long-term deal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think
it's very fun to talk about and think about what like they could do.
I think like if they do try the reclamation route, I forgot who said it. I think it was Patrick Mooney who said this, but why not get a guy like Jameson Taillon, who was a first-round pick,
I'm all in,
has the talent, and see if what you can get out of him.
Smiley and Taillon.
If
you did Smiley and Taillon, okay, with the guys they have, and then went heavy on the free agent position players, in my eyes, that's still a good offseason.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then that they'd probably add one or two like random bullpen names that you never heard of for the cheap, because that's what they've done the last 3 years. Just to add extra depth if they really wanted to. It wouldn't be at the top of the list of things to do, but you know that they would do something like
that. And sign one of
Bogart,
Swanson, Turner.
Yeah.
What is Jeff Samardzija up to these days?
Can Jeff Samardzija still run routes? Bears need help.
Jack Brown says, Tyon, really? As a reclamation cheap signing, like we're not saying like make him your number one guy.
Right.
That's the route if you go heavy in
You get
you get Trey Turner and another big bat.
Shane just listed some other pitchers. I like Chris Bassett as an idea, or Sean Manaea.
Kershaw's going to retire a Dodger.
Yeah, Kershaw is not leaving the Dodgers. Verlander's going to stay with the Astros. And as much as I sit here and dream about DeGrom, he's probably going to stay at the Mets too, or he'll go to the Yankees.
Now, wait a minute. Verlander is a free agent, though.
Yeah, I know.
And we know he already wanted to come to Wrigley Field and pitch for the Cubs.
Perhaps.
So he might see the young talent on the Cubs and be like, why not finish it out there? Pitching for the Houston Astros is not the same thing as pitching for the Cubs. True. If you think day games in Houston are the same as going to day game at Wrigley, he knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it. Do I think the Astros are a better team? Yes, but if he sees them go out and sign Trey Turner and whoever, what if they sign two of those guys, like big names? Mm-hmm. Then he might look at it and go like, wow, I can help them. And they aren't that far away from being competitive in a really bad division. Where they won't be that far away from being – they'll be exactly what they should have been this year. All year.
Verlander would be the ultimate John Lester. See, let's hold on
later.
On Lester.
Yeah, but later.
Anyway, I've enjoyed the first 20 minutes of the show because we're just sitting here dreaming about all the good. And you know what? We've had a lot of bad to talk about this year. It's nice to be excited, and it's you can sit here and you can talk about this Cubs team playing their hottest baseball of the year at the absolute worst time considering how the years went. But at the same time, we're seeing players grow, man. Like Christopher Morel had a great series. Javier Assad shoved 5 innings down a team's throat today that's trying to win. Hayden Wesneski yesterday. We're seeing the pitching pitch very well during this stretch in the second half, and it has been fun to watch. It would be completely different if this team was continuing to play like the first half and you're not seeing any growth out of the young guys. Then we really are sitting here thinking it's going to be 2025, 2026. I don't care if these games don't matter or not. You're seeing growth from a lot of these young guys, and it's definitely giving not only fans, but it has to be giving the Cubs front office some sort of oh, hey, this guy, he is succeeding at doing this and this and this. They have to be learning things about these young players. So there is definitely good coming from the way the Cubs have been playing in the second half. So whether you want to say, oh, they beat the Reds or the Pirates, that doesn't mean anything. Well, they just swept the Phillies, and they won 2 out of 3 against the Mets a week and a half ago, too. So, at this point, it doesn't matter who the hell they're playing to me.
They don't control the schedule. You got to play who's in front of you.
They are just playing good baseball right now. And like I said, it's been fun to watch, and it's sincerely given me hope because I didn't have any hope 2 months ago, man.
We're finally talking about some good. And speaking of good, Green Ridge Farm is a Chicago local meat and cheese company offering you a better all-natural option. Makers of all-natural deli meat, sausages, and their famous meat sticks.
Meat sticks.
Perfect for tailgating, happy hour, school lunches. These all-natural meat sticks are hardwood smoked for 8 hours, not 7, 8. With 16 grams of protein per stick, they make a perfect post-workout snack. Meat sticks come in chicken, black forest beef, flavors like jalapeno cheddar and spicy chili. Haven't tried them yet? You don't know what you're missing. Delicious because they're made from recipes generations in the making. And being all natural, they deliver a fresh, flavorful alternative at snack time. You can always find them in the refrigerated section at Costco, Sam's Club, or your local Chicagoland grocery store. So right now, when you order 3 meat products at greenridgefarm.com, include a pack of meat sticks in your cart. And those meat sticks are free simply by using the code CHGO at checkout. Green Ridge Farm, simply natural meat.
Well, let me tell you about Game Time, Luke.
Please do, because I know you're about to use it.
Yeah, I'm going to use Game Time tomorrow. I'm going to tell you more about that after I tell you about Game Time. Game Time is the hottest new ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and other shows. Ever dreamed of sitting in a seat you never thought you could? 50-yard line, courtside, behind home plate, left field bleachers, for me. Floor seats at a concert, it's possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you thought you could never buy. You won't find a better deal this season on we're literally anywhere.
On any tickets.
Any tickets.
Bears tickets, Cubs tickets, the final 3 games here.
Right. The last weekend series at Wrigley Field. I know the team's not good, but whenever the series is over, no one gets to go to games at Wrigley Field until next April. And that's a long time.
Concerts at the United Center this winter.
Yes, exactly. You won't find a better deal. Created by the fans for the fans, guarantees the lowest price. If you love CHGO, then you'll love Game Time. The best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description. Join over 15 million people who have downloaded the Game Time app and score the best seats to all your favorite events. And that said, tomorrow, reminder, what are we calling it, Luke?
Casual Friday with Cody.
Casual Friday with me.
I like that, man.
I'm going to be at Murphy's Bleachers at 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then me and my girlfriend are going to the game. I'm probably going to sit in left field. So if anyone wants to come meet up, it's a very unofficial. And I'm doing this because we weren't able to have a CHGO Cubs meet up or tailgate. You can't tailgate at Wrigley anyway, but
But this is like vibing with Cody.
Yeah.
Vibing with Del Mendo.
Basically. Just come hang out at Murphy's, eat some tater tots, have a couple Miller Lights with me. I don't care.
I did it on Sunday. It's fun.
Say what?
I did it on Sunday.
You did on Sunday?
I was with you at the bar, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hey, Cody just remembered.
After the Bears tailgate. Yeah, I just remembered. It's been a very, very a memory. 11 a.m.
Friday,
Murphy's Bleachers. Yeah.
And again, this is important
tomorrow
to remember. His advice on points bet gambling will be free at Murphy's Bleachers.
And there are 5 college football games tomorrow.
Your drinks will not be free.
Yeah, drinks and
Cody
drinks
is not
and food,
buying the drinks.
No,
He's just bringing the vibes and the advice.
Yeah, I think Corey's going to come hang out with me there. Yeah. Again, it's just just a way for us to try to show our thanks to everyone who has supported the show over the last 5-6 months, however long we've been doing this. And one day next year we will be doing an official CHGO Cubs meetup, probably rent out a rooftop or something.
Yeah.
And we'll go all in then, but this is just me wanting to meet people who actually listen to our show.
The Cubs crew. Because we do have a lot more Bears tailgates coming up.
Yeah, we have more Bears tailgates definitely coming up.
Which that was apparently... I'm bummed I missed out on it, but at least I know there's some coming in the near future. But it sounds
definitely
like
missed the one with the best weather. Probably stuck.
Probably the best. Well, that's one reason I was disappointed, and the other was when I saw the breakfast taco with the carne asada and the scrambled egg, and I was just like, I was real disappointed. If that doesn't happen again, I'm going to be real disappointed. Now today, somebody did bring in Do Right Donuts, which was very nice.
Oh yeah, I had that
Caitlin,
Boston cream pie or. Yeah,
I had
that one. Yeah.
Pumpkin spice cream cheese frosting, and I was one of those guys that said, these people with their pumpkin spice, right? Enough already. I don't need pumpkin spiced Peeps at the grocery store. I don't need pumpkin spice milk. I don't need pumpkin spice bread. I don't need everything is pumpkin spice. But this donut was there, and I saw it. It wasn't a regular Do Right donut. It was a new one. I saw the pumpkin spice, and I was like, I'm doing it. And frankly, it's the only reason I'm awake right now. I was tired coming in here today. This thing shot in the arm, right? Woo!
You're a pumpkin spice guy now?
Wow, just the Do Right donut.
Just the Do Right.
Hats off to them. Wow, do they know how to make a donut?
Unrelated, I'm laughing at Sean's comment about Kate Upton possibly being at every home game if the Cubs sign Justin Verlander.
I saw that.
So I just want to acknowledge that I saw your comment. I don't have anything else to say to it, but me acknowledging it should tell you exactly what I'm thinking when you mention it. So take that with what you will.
Ricketts loves pumpkin spice, according to Collada.
Shout out to Collada for being here. He missed the last 2 days. He said earlier in the comments that he lives in Florida and the hurricanes.
Oh, wow.
On down there. So I'm glad to see he's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Glad.
But you
Right,
also
he's safe
missed the
and-
show where
Boy, devastation
You
already
also
starting
missed
to
the
show
show
up.
where someone called Ricketts an idiot, and like you just weren't here, and it's like
Right, we did miss him.
The one time, this was like it was like the show exactly for him, and he
The quote from the Minnesota newspaper writer was talking about Correa, and he's like, it only takes one idiot owner to give Correa 10 years, something like that, yada, yada. And I think that one idiot may have already presented himself, and person is Tom Ricketts. And immediately we were like,
where's Collada?
when did Collada start writing for the Minnesota Star Tribune?
Yeah, right. Oh, God. Anyway.
Yeah, anyways. We've had good vibes today. So that started with the donut for me. Then we had good vibes. Cubs win.
Yep.
Ass man shoves.
Then
Keegan Thompson, the mayor, comes in and shoves. Then Kyle walks through the door, and we're like, wow, unexpected visit. This is nice. The three of us will do the show. Now we also think back to last night. Again, at that point, the Cubs were still rolling there as well. But did you see Pedro Strop sitting with Miggy Montero at Wrigley Field? Look at that.
I wish
Throwback.
did they put it up on the video board, right?
Yeah, Strop was shown on the left field video board.
Well, I'm glad they acknowledged it because when we were watching
There
the
he
game, they didn't acknowledge it on TV. At least I don't remember them doing it. So
Yeah.
on marquee, I don't remember them acknowledging it. But that's awesome. Cubs legend, Cub for life.
Look at Miggy. Just waiting to race somebody outside Wrigley Field down
That guy
Sheffield.
looks like someone who could definitely beat Yadi Molina in a race.
Oh, man.
Oh. Sister Jean's fastball could beat Yadier Molina in a race.
I love all of the like memes and people making videos of that moment is why I can never delete Twitter off my phone.
Yeah, even the one with Sister Jean striking out Javi Baez is funny.
There's a Tigers fan at my school that I had to tell him that he was not happy, but I was happy though.
Yeah.
So it was
Favorite Pedro Strop moment?
You got to go first, Cody.
I don't know if I have a single favorite moment. I just like the attitude that he brought and the consistent bullpen arm that he brought when they traded away a bucket of baseballs and got Arrieta and Strop.
Mine, people probably have forgotten about the one I'm about to say because the Cubs lost the game. But my favorite Pedro Strop moment, 2018, the wild card game against the Rockies. Now, mind you, remember when Madden let him bat and he pulled his hamstring running the first base, and then all of us erupted into anger.
I do remember
for
that.
rightful reasons. He was out until the wild card game, and I think Strop later on, like not even after that game, but maybe even like a few days later, said that he probably shouldn't have even pitched in that game. Like he wasn't healthy enough to even do that.
Right.
And he still was pitched in that game. I think he went 1 or 2 clean innings, and I just remember
It's a good one.
I remember him strutting off the mound after an inning, just pumped up, giving you the classic Pedro Strop energy, man. Like he was one of my favorite players. Easily one of my favorite players. And the only reason that anyone ever didn't like him is because he didn't wear his hat straight. And I always thought that was the dumbest thing. The dumbest thing. Sorry. Thank you.
You know what? My favorite Strop moment is probably you and Pedro wearing a very similar romper a few months ago.
There you go.
When you guys wore like almost identical rompers on the same day, I thought, well,
I wasn't wearing a romper, but you know.
But it looked like one.
I was trying to vibe the same as Pedro Strop, all right?
And then Sean did come in a romper from CHGO
Yes,
Socks. He actually
he
wore
did.
like some sort of brown-colored tablecloth romper.
Man.
Right.
But mine's probably, I just remembered this and looked it up. But his dance after they clinched the World Series, I remember watching this in 2016, just of him just dancing euphorically after they win. Yeah. And I just have to go with that. That's the great vibes.
Mm-hmm. I also like that video that's always appearing on my Twitter timeline every now and then. Our good friend Dom Frederick always tweets it, and it's just, I think it's Pedro Strop with John Lester's 4 rings on his hand, and he's just like, John Lester Reams, woof. It's one of the more funnier videos I have ever seen on the internet.
You think to that Arrieta Strop trade to the Orioles where you just thought, well, we're really not trading anything away. And you get back what turns out to be a Cy Young pitcher and a guy that goes on a stretch of the best pitching in baseball history. And then you get Strop, that people forget he was part of the deal, but you get this super reliable multi-year bullpen arm.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, out of all of these Cubs trades the last couple years, since the sell-off of the core, right? I don't think you could ever expect that one of them will go as well as that did, because that's probably, other than Ryne Sandberg or with Ryne Sandberg, the two greatest trades in franchise history. But which one do you think will turn out to be the best trade? Right now, Efros for Wisniewski,
It's looking pretty good.
recency bias gives you a little bit of, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that's going to be the one. The Javi PCA
That's the
is
one
another one that
yeah,
has people
Javi
pretty
PCA
excited.
ranks a little higher for me because if PCA comes up to the Cubs next year or the year after and just is an automatic stud to be in the All-Star game every year, and Javi Baez is falling apart in Detroit like he has been all season, and the fact that the Mets only had him for half a year, like that's
But
you
now,
can, that's
Chris
pretty,
Bryant
that's pretty
was
good.
Killian and
Canario.
Yep.
And Rizzo, you got you Alcantara.
Alcantara.
I might go with that one. Getting Alcantara back. If
I mean, we just haven't seen those guys enough. The reason you say that I said Wisniewski is because we've seen him now at the major league level.
True.
And it's easy to compare apples to apples, but you did give up a guy that was pretty good. Now, the other ones are core guys from the greatest team in franchise history.
Yeah, and that's, if Javi Baez turns around and has a big bounce back year next year for Detroit, I'll be happy. I mean, it's more on the Mets, the fact that they gave up PCA for a half a season of Baez and then they didn't even keep him. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, it might be why they didn't. Many suggest it might be why they did not go for the Wilson Contreras deal, because they didn't want another PCA disaster on their hands.
Right.
I just feel as a franchise, if you're scared to make another trade with a team because you don't want to get fleeced like that again, that's more on how you view your young prospects. Like if Javi for PCA at the time, it was universally like, how did that happen? Because PCA was drafted in 2020, one of their top prospects, albeit in a pretty
and he was hurt.
Yeah, and hurt.
They were desperate to make a move for their fans and to think that maybe they could pull off a World Series.
Yeah, or just get in the playoffs.
Yeah, try and get it done. Now, Jack points out in the broadcast, they did show head-to-head this season Morel's stats and Javi's stats, and they were
not very far off.
Oh, they were really close.
Yeah.
They were really close, but one guy's 23 and making nothing.
Right. Yeah. And Morel has a higher slugging percentage too. I mean, Javi's slugging percentage under 400 this year. Like I have no idea what's going on with him this year. Like, it's weird because like his strikeout rate is significantly down compared to like when he was with the Cubs, but his power's significantly down, and he's still not getting hits.
Unless they're facing the White Sox.
Yeah, he only hits when they play the White Sox,
epic.
which is fine. Which, if that's what happens the rest of his career, that's fine with me. I
love that. I love that Javi. When like, even though he was on the South Side, he still was like, no, they love me on the North Side. I was like, I love that. I love the pettiness.
I love yes.
Well, yeah, when you get booed,
he wouldn't
for honestly
he wouldn't
really
be
no
doing
good
it
reason.
if they weren't booing him like crazy, right? So that's the reason.
Right. And it's so little brother syndrome too. It really is. Like, we play the White Sox 4 times a year. They don't boo anyone louder. I don't think Sox fans have booed anyone louder this year than Javi Baez, and probably Anthony Rizzo. Which is just so dumb to me.
I don't get that.
Is there no one on the
never
Twins or the
understood that.
Tigers or the Guardians that you hate more? Like, at least that's in division. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
But the team on the North Side and the NL just gets under their skin with them.
Lucas says he keeps the 2016 team picture in his locker and by his bed.
Hell yeah, man. I love
Why not?
that.
And you know what? On the other nightstand, he just stacks cashes. Like, piles of millions of dollars is what he does on the other nightstand. Best of both worlds for him. Like, I don't hold that against him. Hey, look at this. I won over here and I won over here.
Yeah.
Wouldn't blame him.
Yeah. Yeah, I to sum it up, I am rooting for him to have a better year next year. He's definitely better than what we've seen this year. And no one ever lives up to like what the contract is in year one. There's very few players who play well in year one of the free agent contract. So
John Lester didn't play well in his first year. Didn't pitch well early in the season.
Yeah.
Season, right?
Yeah.
It was tough. He admitted it was tough.
Right. Yeah. But, he was still at a really solid first year.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, early on, he admitted it was
there's a lot of pressure.
Difficult. Yeah.
Definitely a lot of pressure.
And like
when you're in a big market, too, for sure, So, like, I'm not saying the Cubs should take that into act whenever they go to free agency and try and bring in some guys, but you sign, like, the big thing about free agency I've always thought is, like, whoever you bring in, you got to make sure you still have a really good core that you already have in-house. That way, like, there's not all this pressure on all these free agents to come in and to carry your team.
Yeah.
That's honestly like what the Phillies are. The Phillies farm system is awful, and the guys who are carrying their team are Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and Nick Castellanos, and they got Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler. And I mean, all of those guys are really good at baseball, right? But like, they don't have other guys except maybe Alec Boehm, who like can help carry a ball club. You know what I mean? And that's why they've been a very, like, in my opinion, an up and down team this year, because at the beginning of the year they struggled. They looked like they were not going to be in it, and then they fired Girardi and they got good, got real hot, and here they are in September faltering.
Can't blame Girardi for this.
Yeah, like, I think it all comes back to the fact that they just don't have a good farm system, and they don't have other guys. They don't have enough depth on their team to like really take them to the next level. I mean, the fact that they have all those guys and they're fighting for a wild card spot that explains it enough for me. Like, to me, you look at that roster, you have Bryce Harper on your team and two of the top pitchers in the National League, and you're fighting for a second wild card. Like, I know the Braves and the Mets are in your division, but like, to me, like, they should be easily running away with the second wild card if Milwaukee is the one team that's behind them. Like, and that's just the way I feel about it.
They're kind of a cautionary tale, like you said, for the Cubs. Like, you want to be more like the Dodgers, where they have all of these big contracts on the team, but they also have a top 5 farm system. So they can replenish. When they make those big trades, they have guys coming up who can help replenish and surround their core.
Yeah. Lucas mentions JT Realmuto, too. Sorry, he's one of the best catchers in the league. I forgot.
And thanks, Sarah. Only 24 likes. Like, come on. Like,
come on.
I understand if I'm sitting here by myself talking to the camera, 24 likes. Cody's going to dish out some points bet deals for you that you're going to want to hang on to for the weekend. And Kyle Williams walked in today, guys. Like, 24 likes? That needs to be doubled.
Like,
that needs to be doubled by the end of this.
This is a good day.
And the Cubs won. They swept the Phillies.
Season series. All right. Tonight, I'm taking the Dolphins plus 3.5. I don't like it, but that's what I'm riding with, because if you can give me the undefeated team against the team that has a shitty offensive line, then I'm going to take the Dolphins and the points. The only thing that scares me is the fact that the Bengals are wearing their beautiful, beautiful whiteout unis, and if that is the only reason that I were to bet the Bengals, that is a really good reason. So anyone betting the Bengals, I know Jack R is going to bet the Bengals. He literally leaves a comment in every show that I am on to let me know. I don't blame you. But again, I think the Dolphins, they're playing well right now, and the Bengals, they ain't proving shit to me except for the fact they beat the Jets. Congratulations. Anyway, this football season, points bet. I'm making the bet on points bet, guys. It's bringing you the better way to bet live on games. That means before this ad is over, you can play the live same-game parlay, bet on the next drive to be a touchdown, and cash out your live second-half over bet. So whether you're on the move or on the couch, do it live on PointsBet. Download the PointsBet app today and sign up with code CHGO to get your first 2 bets risk-free up to $2,000. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services. I also like any prop on Tyreek Hill tonight because he told Eli Apple straight up in postgame on Sunday that the cheetah is coming for him. So take that with what you will. Okay. I got Tyreek Hill at plus 1,000 to score the first touchdown tonight during the PointsBet Power Hour yesterday. I am a big Tyreek Hill fan tonight. So
I'm a big Ryan Herrera fan. He's ready to go from Wrigley Field. Field of Dreams hat ready to go. Birthday week is over. He's settled in now at the press box. And we basically got our goodbye Jason Hayward, correct? What was the gist of what Jason Hayward wanted to say and make sure people knew today?
Well, first of all, the birthday week is not over.
Oh,
we still vibing. All right.
I didn't realize.
No, yeah. So regarding Hayward, we talked about for about a half hour, 35 minutes actually pregame. Jed, probably early August, said obviously that they're not bringing Jason Hayward back. They're going to release him. They're going to eat that last year of that contract. And Hayward, I mean, it just felt like it was no sour grapes about anything that transpired. It was like a super grateful kind of feeling. It was like I'm happy to have contributed to winning baseball here kind of thing. And he just super grateful. He kept talking about how great it was to play in front of these fans and to play at Wrigley Field every day and bring a championship back to the north side of Chicago. Breaking that 108-year curse. So it was just like, and I know he's having a ceremony I think on Saturday too. They're going to honor him a little bit or something like that, but it just like felt like he was, not disappointed or shocked by the decision that they're going to part ways, but just more grateful for the opportunity to have, played here for 7 years.
I mean, we said earlier today on the CHGO podcast, Ryan, like you cannot, he didn't live up to the contract on the field, but he exceeded it in every other way off the field, right? Like he's everything you want a player to be. He's everything you want a leader to be. He's everything you want a teammate to be. And I know that the most important part for fans watching a game is on the field, but don't forget what a class act he was while he was here and what he did for the city. And so I would love to see him, when it's all done, come back and still be part of this franchise. Did I read a quote somewhere where he said something about he would be interested in some sort of minority ownership piece, like to kind of bridge the gap? Did I read that right? That he said that's something he would, look into or at least talk about?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I know he said he's like, well, I mean, it kind of came from like what we asked him, what is kind of the future look for him. And he obviously wants to play baseball again. Like he doesn't want to retire. But yeah, he kind of talked about working in, just like he doesn't want to be a manager. He doesn't think he can manage in today's kind of game, but he talked about, being in like some kind of front office role, maybe as like a minority owner kind of thing, or in the ownership group or something like that. He doesn't know exactly what kind of capacity that'll be, partial ownership, whatever the role is, but that he would like to help kind of be someone that can be that like translator between player and front office. Like he thinks there's some things get lost in translation, going from the clubhouse to the front office. And he wants to, maybe be someone that can bridge that gap and offer perspective of a guy who's obviously been here and won a World Series, won a bunch of Gold Gloves, been 3 different teams, and potentially a 4th, I guess, if we consider what's going on in the future. But just to provide like a different voice, a different perspective, at a level where he's able to, at a level where the whole organization is in sync. And that seems like something that just the way Jason Hayward, the respect he commands as a player, I don't see any way why he wouldn't command that same kind of respect in a front office role.
I will say, by the way, because I know that you'll have sort of a split reaction in the chat because people are upset with the way he played, and I think most people realize he at least deserves the respect of being a great guy, a great community person. He gave the speech. I don't know how much credit he gets for that or not, but like They didn't lose the World Series after the speech. But I also do say they did overplay him, like specifically this season. Had he played 20 less games, might they have 5 more wins? I don't know. And I don't know if those 5 wins make a huge difference or not in your mind. But do you think, in your gut, do you think the speech made a difference?
Yeah, I think it did. And let me just say this, because the chat is very interesting. Every time we talk about Jason Hayward, it's interesting. And again, I've been someone who's sat on this podcast since its existence began in March, where I said that the Cubs need to move on from Jason Hayward. But Jason Hayward had decent years here. It wasn't like he was a minus WAR player. It's not like he was like hurting the team.
Good defensively.
He was great defensively, and the bat did improve to an extent in 2018 and 2019, in my opinion. Even 2017 a little bit. Did it ever live up to what he did with the Cardinals in 2015? No. But there were stretches where I thought maybe he was on that path, because he would go through some streaky parts of the season where you're like, wow, he's really playing like what I saw when he was with the Cardinals. He just never could do it for a full year. And then the injuries have been a thing this past year, and just the fact of where the Cubs have transitioned to rebuilding or whatever. So I just want to say that, again, didn't live up to the contract, but people who say that this guy was the worst free agent signing in Cubs history, you guys, I mean, no. I know Milton Bradley only made $30 million, but that guy was awful. He was, not only was he bad in the field, but he's a bad dude. And
he ended up going to prison, I believe.
Yeah, like that is, to me, that guy is far and away the worst free agent signing the Cubs ever made. I mean, and they signed that guy to bat fifth in a lineup and play outfield and like be a guy that's going to take your team over the top. Like very kind of similar to what Hayward was supposed to be for the Cubs too. I will say this though, while Hayward, the speech probably helped them win the World Series, and his presence in the locker room definitely helped him in the World Series or in the playoffs and winning in 2016 and in 17. I will say that I think his contract is part of the reason why there was no dynasty. That's just the way I look at it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I completely agree with that, because the Cubs aren't strapped for cash. Like Hayward's contract shouldn't be why they weren't able to spend more money.
It wasn't $400 million.
I agree. I don't think it should be, Ryan, but
you believe it is part of the
believe
problem.
It is part of the reason.
Okay,
I think it's a valid point, and it might not be. Maybe I'm just sitting over here being a conspiracy theorist, but like, why else would you give that guy all that money, and then when Bryce Harper's available, you don't try and get him, or try to get this guy or whatever, or fix your problems that you had from the end of 2018 through the end of 2020. They like, we've had that conversation many times. There's a reason why Michael Collada is in the comments every day talking about Ricketts. Like they paid for Hayward, and then I'll give them credit, they paid for you, Darvish, but then after that they stopped. Like to me, like the Hayward contract has to have something to do with that. It has to have something to do with it.
Okay, maybe if we're saying like it shouldn't have had anything to do with it, then I think that's where
like it shouldn't have,
but
it
shouldn't
like
have. If it did,
from the way we look at it now, it feels like it is.
If they acknowledge that, if they mentally to themselves acknowledged that was at least a fraction of the problem, that contract, how long it was, and they always had said, Theo had always said, he will not pay a guy for what he has done. He wants to pay a guy going into his prime, and that's why they were so excited about Hayward, because they thought they were getting a guy just entering his prime, a young player with a lot of promise. Don't make the mistake again. Learn from it, right? Don't give super long contracts unless you are 1,000% sure. And that is kind of the way they went, even though they offered deals to a lot, like Baez and Rizzo and Bryant, like some of these guys. But like, if you don't believe in them 100%, don't hamstring yourself with a 10-year deal or a 9-year deal or a $250 or a $275 million deal. Don't just throw money at the wrong answer.
Yeah.
So hopefully they've learned their
And-
lesson.
And to top it off, like, it's not even like the Cubs offered Jason Hayward the most money. The Cardinals offered him the most money, and he chose to come to the Cubs. I will always love him for that, for choosing the Cubs over the Cardinals.
And by the way, I thought it was a good signing.
it made
When they
sense.
signed Hayward, I was like,
In the
wow.
moment,
And you took him
it
away
made
from the
sense.
Cardinals. Nice job.
Yeah, it was in the moment at the time. It was a great signing, and again, I thought the first, 2016, the playoffs weren't great, but his defense, like, they needed outfield defense in a big way going into 2016. I mean, you saw how bad the outfield defense was in 2015 with Schwarber and Jorge Soler in your corner outfield. You needed help defensively in the outfield, and they got it. Now, was that worth $184 million? Absolutely not. But, like,
You are what the market says
you
are,
paid
though.
that money
Yeah,
to
that's
a
true.
you
That's
paid that
true,
money
Kyle.
to a guy who was like 26 and was coming off his best season
Yeah.
in St. Louis, like, and he was called up when he was like, what, 20, 19 or 20 years
Yeah,
old?
20.
Like,
Right.
this guy was supposed to be basically what we've seen out of Bryce Harper or something close to that. You know what I mean? Like a 5-tool player, all-star every single, like he just didn't turn out to be that. The Cubs took a chance on that. It looked like after he had that season with the Cardinals, he looked like someone who was going to finally get to that point. And you look at his body and everything, like, and you're like, this guy looks like a stud. Right. Even now at like 32 or 33, however old he is, like, he still looks like he could go out there and play.
Oh, yeah, no,
but
he's
like,
a fitness freak, yeah.
But like, the results just aren't there. You know what I mean? And so, like, again, like, that's the only thing. The whole just not being able to perform on the field the way that you paid him to be, that's the thing that sucks. And
I'll say
he's not the only one, though, in the league.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I'll just say 2 quick things on Hayward. Like, he was what the market said he was. Like you mentioned, the Cardinals were offering him more money, and it's one of those things. Like, it turned out to be a bad contract, but I mean, that's just what the market was at the time. It's just, you can't help that. And then also, he was also just, I don't know. I don't want to put too much value in being a good teammate, but there is some value in that. And
sure.
I was reading Rossi's book that he wrote, and from that season, as soon as the season began, Hayward took care of Ross during his farewell season and paid so he could have like a hotel room and have that extra family time. And that stuff's not the end all be all, but I mean, when you factor who he is as a person, the defense and everything, he was not a plus to that team, but he brought something to that team, which is something that it should be commended, but that contract was a mistake.
No, and a lot of that, like, if people don't understand, that's a lot of why David Ross was loyal to him.
Oh yeah,
as a player. I mean, he had done a lot for him in his final season. Ryan, he did address like the contract in general, right? Like, he was asked, like, do you feel like you lived up or the contract? Or I don't know how the question was worded, but he did address it, correct?
Yeah, he kind of was asked, like, what do you think when people say you had like a bad contract? like if you see that, or people call you a bust, or the complain about the contract, like, what is your thought on that? And he kind of said, it's kind of a contract is a contract. Like, in some way, he feels, I guess, fortunate to be. He said something like, I feel fortunate to be in a select club. This is paraphrasing, but fortunate to be in a select club of players that have earned bad contracts, because there's bad contracts out there. And I mean, that's true. And he's not the only. The Cubs are not the only team that have ever made the mistake on giving a guy a long contract that's hard to get out of and hampers them in some way. Yeah, but I mean, he also feels like that he's brought other things to the table. Like and I mean, this stuff that we talk about. Like, he brings other things to the table, outside of just the contract, right? Or just outside of, like, he's not being able to hit. He talked about he showed that he had value. Even in like 2016, he didn't hit very well, but he played great defense. He won a Gold Glove that year, and then in that sense, like, that lineup probably didn't need him to be an all-star hitter. They needed a guy who played great defense and provide veteran leadership, and that's what he did. That's part of winning the championship. And Luke, when we were on the CHGO show or the Chicago show earlier, we talked about, like, would you give Hayward that contract again? And I think you go back and you look at it, it's like if everyone that's around Jason Hayward, everyone that was part of that 2016 club will say they might not win that World Series without Jason Hayward. I mean, David Ross literally said it today, like, we don't win the World Series without Jason Hayward. Maybe they're blowing smoke. But if you believe that, if you believe in what a lot of the people around Jason Hayward, around that 2016 team say, if you believe that the Cubs would not have won that World Series without Jason Hayward on that team, you go back and you do it every single time. Because if you're a Cubs fan, you waited 108 years for the Cubs to win a World Series, and you finally get one. But then would you trade that to not have Jason Hayward's contract on the books? I don't think I would.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see. I'll be curious to see if he gets another shot at the big league level.
I think he will.
I think some team will probably give him a deal next year. Just
in a way,
for one, that that you're not getting a guy that's going to be a problem. Like, he might help a young player.
It would not shock me, Luke, if he goes somewhere and he reverts back to some sort of.
Don't say the team I know you're thinking.
No, they won't do it. But he will go somewhere, and because he, one, isn't the highest paid player on the team, and two, it's a refresh, like a change of scenery type thing. As much as he says he loves being here and all that, like, and is close to the organization, I think, honestly, we've seen it so many times. Change of scenery. You don't have all the pressure of having the most, like, making the most money on the team. Like, I think it could be a good thing for him. I don't know. He's not going to revert back to an all-star, but I think he can be a productive player.
All right, let's get to who you got real quick before we head out here. Kyle wasn't here pregame, so he didn't make a pick. I had Contreras, who had a double and not much else the rest of the day. Nico was Ryan. Cody had the strange Suzuki triple.
So it goes down in the book as a triple.
Yeah, I mean, it does go down as a triple, just as much as I wanted mine to be a hit. I know I'm out of it. Contreras was out of it. I don't remember really what Nico did. Not much today, right?
I think he went 0 for. I think Nico was 0 for.
All right, so
Contreras,
Cody wins.
1 for 5. Say it. I don't know. I guess we'll give Say a 2 for 3 since that's what it says in the box.
And he had a walk.
Right. Either way, it's either the walk, obviously a fly out to center field and a hit versus my double, but like, it was just a double.
And he scored a run.
My guy had a chance to win it with 2 on at the end of the game, and
they were already leading.
Yeah, and he struck out. So, but I mean, a 3-run bomb, you would have been like 3-run bomb and a double.
Yeah, if your guy would have hit a 3-run bomb, I would have been like, all right. So updated standings: 27, 24, 21, 2, 2, 1.5, 1, 1.
So with 6 games to go.
I have to win out just to tie.
You're going to have to be bold. You're going to have to Kyros your way.
Oh, yeah, I could do that now. I could do that because you got
to be bold.
You gave me 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, your only chance right now is to go Kyros for 2 points. They gave me 2.
No, you know what? I should have done that for Stroman on Tuesday because his ERA is very bad at Wrigley coming.
Yeah, I don't know if we would have given you 2 points for taking Marcus Stroman.
Why?
But
he wasn't pitching good at Wrigley.
Esteban Kyros, I never even heard the name when I picked him.
Oh my God!
Let alone
because you don't.
Oh, all right,
you don't pay attention.
That's right. Exactly. I don't.
Yeah, we're here talking about the game.
Thanks to everybody that joined in the chat. Cubs win again. What is it? 8 of 9.
8 of 9, I believe.
8 of 9, and now the push to 75.
So, how many losses do they have? 80. What are they? 70 and 80.
I don't math.
86.
I'm a journalist.
86. All right. Yep. So even if the season total doesn't hit for me, I'd love for them to avoid 90 losses. Like, that's possible.
Yeah.
Go 4-2 the next 6.
Yeah, it's 6 games against the Reds.
Yeah.
You should at least go 4-2.
They just have to go 500.
That's what we're asking for.
The rest of the way.
Yeah, 3-3.
Avoid 90 losses. 3 months ago, we were like, this team's losing 110 games.
I thought it was possible. Collada says successful season. There it is.
There you go, Collada.
People have spoken. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs Postgame Show podcast presented by PointsBet. We will be back for postgame on Friday.
I'll be there too. I'll be showing
Don't forget Cody, 11 o'clock,
Bleachers.
Murphy's Bleachers.
Yep.
Casual Friday with Cody. Until then, fly the W.